Hey guys, we're going to talk a little bit in detail how to do the grid method because we are stepping into that and it can be challenging if you don't do it correctly because the math has to be accurate. So let's talk about where we're at in the project. So you currently have created your AI generated artwork. You have it printed. You have it printed in color, hopefully, to make it easier. But if you did black and white, that's fine. You have your piece of paper and your ruler and your pencil, and you're about to do the grid method, okay? So there are written directions for this in the slides, but I'm gonna post this video to help you guys out. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your printed out AI generated artwork and you are going to draw a grid on it, okay? Yes, you're gonna have to use a ruler. Yes, you're gonna have to use a pencil. The grid needs to be exact, okay? I printed this one on here for you guys so that you can see what I mean by exact. A lot of us, we just start drawing lines and drawing them. We get the horizontal and the vertical correct, but we don't bother to get the grid accurate. So when we're talking about a grid and doing the grid method, it is squares and they are exact. The definition of a square is all four sides are exactly the same. So for example, these are 1.5 inch squares. That means they're 1.5 inch this way and 1.5 inch this way, okay? How do you accomplish that? Well, you take your ruler, okay, and you mark them off all the way down, and then you use your ruler to draw a straight line, okay? And then you do the same across the top, all right? So a grid, when you're using the grid method, the squares have to be exact or it doesn't work and it's pointless. Okay, so that's the very most important thing is when you're drawing your grid, you can decide what size your squares are going to be. I would not do any larger than 1.5 on the small grid. You can go as small as 1 inch if you'd like, but don't go up to as large as 2 because the point of the grid method is to narrow the space down that you are trying to replicate. So it's easier for your brain if there's less lines to replicate within that square, okay? So I wouldn't go any larger than 1.5, all right? So now you've drawn your grid, you've measured it out, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, you've used your ruler to draw straight lines, and now you have really good squares, okay? This is what it will look like on the artwork, all right? So here's the part that's really important. You need to figure out how many squares are on this, okay? This is an old school math lesson here. So if you have 12 squares this way, which is that's how many I have, and we have 9 squares this way, and that's how many that I have, you do 12 times 9, which is 108. So I have 108 squares on here. Set that to the side. Now you have this big piece of paper. You are going to put 108 squares on this as well, okay? But this paper is smaller than this paper. What we're not doing is drawing 108 little squares here in the middle. We are upscaling using the grid, okay? So if you did 1.5 here, you might do 2 inches on here or 2.5 on here, okay? This is a much more elongated rectangle than this piece of paper. So you might end up with a little bit of paper here at the bottom that you need to trim off, okay? But what you're going to do is you're going to use your ruler again, and you're going to draw your squares a little bit bigger. Let's shoot for 2.5 maybe, and measure across the top. And you're gonna measure, and you're going to create 9 squares across the top, because that's what we have on here, is 9 squares. So however large that square needs to be for it to be 9 equal squares across the top, that is what you're going to do, okay? So I'm just going to let you guys know that 1 inch squares are not big enough because this paper is 18 by 12, okay? So we know that the top of this paper is 12 inches across and that you need to make 9 squares fit into that. So you're across the top. So you're gonna have to do a little bit of math, okay? And also down the side. The side of this is 18 inches. You're gonna have to do a little bit of math. You are upscaling. Here is the very, very most important part. If there are 108 squares on this piece of paper, and I've said it once, if there are 108 squares on this piece of paper, there must be 108 on this piece of paper. The squares on this piece of paper are going to be larger because you are using the grid to upscale, okay? Then it becomes very simple because you can think about it like a math grid where it would be like A1, B4, C7, whatever the case may be. And you will find that square. So whatever this square might be, you're going to replicate what is in this square on that same square on your paper. And that is how you use the grid method to draw realistically, and it's how you use the grid method to upscale your artwork. So I know we've gone over this a couple of times already, but I felt like this needed to be reiterated because I'm seeing a lot of wonky grids. The grids have to be exact or it will not work. Okay, good luck.